You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We love MotoGP. Hello and welcome to Missed Apex MotoGP Podcast. This is a show put together by MotoGP fans pretending to be experts. We aim to have a race review show ready for a midweek commute. We may just be punters, but we love to talk. As we finally return from the summer break, Marc Marquez continued his utter domination of the sport. But it wasn't such an easy ride, as Marco Bezzecchi and a young Spanish hotshot gave him something to sweat about as he finally took his first Austrian win in what was MotoGP's 1000th race. As always, I am your host Kyle Power, and today I am joined in the virtual shed by some fellow MotoGP enthusiasts. We have been robbed of Jules Seegers by some torrid tech issues, but we are joined by the tyre-obsessed trumpeter, Matt Trumpets. How's it going, Matt?
It's going great. This is one of my favorite tracks just for the sheer aesthetic, and I'm very excited by the on-track action we have to discuss.
Absolutely. The Styrian Mountains are beautiful and provide an awesome backdrop. Something else that is also beautiful is our token northerner, Danny Henney. How's it going, Danny?
Oh, thank you, Kyle. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Looking forward to talking to this one. Some good, interesting points and some amazing rides in the Sunday race. So, yeah, some good talking points to get into.
Absolutely. I think it was ended up being a bit more of a dramatic sort of a couple of races than I think everyone was expecting. So heading into the weekend then, there's a few little points that I'll just quickly gloss over now. We've now got stability control added to the standard ECUs. Boo. I don't think this has been popular at all across the board. It's not direct. It's not traction control. It's a kind of form of traction control, which only let the bike slide in a certain way. You could argue it takes the skill out of it. Certainly didn't enamour Casey Stoner to the modern MotoGP rules. He had a few things to say over the weekend. The sprint race rules have been slightly tweaked to allow the teams, I think, 20 minutes on the grid now instead of 15, which is noteworthy. There was only one LCR Honda on the grid because Somkat Chantra is still injured and his replacement, Nakagami, is injured after being harpooned at the previous race. So there was no more stand-ins. So we have to wait until next week to get two LCRs back, when it will be Aleix Espargaro coming back to replace them. And returning from injuries, we have Maverick Vinales and Frankie Morbidelli, who are both returning from their respective injuries. So the championship situation then. Marc Marquez, mighty, out in front with a 120-point lead over his brother, with Bagnaia 168 points back, and then quite a nice little battle bubbling up there between Bezzecchi, Di Giannantonio and Morbidelli for 4th, 5th and 6th in the championship. So then, guys, on to practice and quali. And Matt, I know you're one who likes to watch sort of quali and practice quite a lot. Marquez was looking really quick during the practices, but as we almost say every weekend now, Bagnaia was looking pretty strong until his weekend started to unravel.
Yeah, this has been a real feature. Whatever development path they take across the weekend to account for the track rubbering in and the anticipated conditions, he seems to start out absolutely on top of everything. And by time they get to actually racing, it's like they've given him a different bike. And I'm really, I'm not an engineer, but I'm dying to know, like, sort of what the thought process is, because it seems like they're doing more or less the same thing with both bikes, but it's just not working for one of your riders. And at a certain point, you'd think they'd try some different paths forward across the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it must be frustrating. And you can see his comments after the weekend. Like, you can almost feel the frustration coming out for him now. Someone who wasn't that frustrated that we saw was Raul Fernandez. He was looking really quick through the practices, but oddly, he was the only Aprilia looking quick during practices, because Bezzecchi was only in P18 after the practice and had to go through Q1, as well as Jorge Martin and Ayagura as well. None of them were looking particularly quick, apart from Fernandez, and he's really turned a corner. He was really strong in Brno. I think that little pep talk that the team boss has given him, I think, has really sorted him out, and he's coming on strong now. Another team who were coming on strong were the KTMs. It was great. Like, it was absolutely brilliant to see Acosta, Binder, and also Bastianini, even though he went through Q1, Bastianini was also looking quick, Matt.
Well, yeah, this is the thing. KTM have this new aero package, and everyone seemed to be very happy about it. But this race at a circuit where traditionally they don't do particularly well, or at least that's what I was led to believe, they absolutely kind of smashed it across the weekend. And again, very good timing if your manufacturer is more or less bankrupt and hanging on with their fingernails for dear corporate life. It was very good timing for them to have pulled this update forward. And I think also it's especially good because, and no disrespect to Binder, who's quite the good rider, but clearly at this point, Acosta is your celebrity property, so to speak. He's your hot hand. And he had been making some fairly dismal noises about the performance of the bike earlier in the year. And now he's coming up with, not only am I much happier with the bike, like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel and I know it's not a train, but it seems like the team have been working with him to optimize his championship points results in a way that's been super beneficial for him and starts to look like a real turn towards maturity as a rider. He's going to be unbelievably dangerous if they get this bike much better.
That is a fantastic point, and I'll throw to Danny now because Danny, like as Matt said, Acosta's been getting a little bit hot-headed. He's been making some bad sort of like comments about the team, mentioned it himself, but the mainstay of like KTM was Binder. Binder was always like their golden boy before Acosta arrived, and all the focus seems to be on Acosta, and he's been faltering, but Binder's had a shocking season. And as Matt said, they brought this aero package on, and Binder's suddenly back in the mix. So if you're Brad Binder, your mental state must be all over the place, and you must be like, man, I need to start getting on it quick because this kid's going to knock me off my perch, and he's looking at losing his ride at the end of the season. So I don't know, from your perspective, how would you go about the racing now if you were Brad Binder?
Elbows out. That's what you need to do, wouldn't it? I'd start trying to rough up Acosta and make sure that I get some results in front of him. I mean, it's like you said, when it comes to Binder, hell of a rider, but this season he's just been dead quiet. I think this is the first race I can genuinely say I've watched it though, and I can remember things he was doing or seeing him on the telly and the commentary talking about him. Looking at how he did last year, I mean, he was up battling for wins last season, doing really good results, and he's just gone quiet. But I think, yeah, the battle with Acosta, he's got to try and get himself back in that window because, as you say, he was the golden boy of the team, the future, where they were looking to do. Acosta's turned up and just making him look amateur at the minute. I mean, it is swinging around a little bit, isn't it, though? Because Acosta has been quiet this season as well. And, you know, it was only a couple of races ago we were saying how good Viñales was looking again. So what I would say on that is it's good to at least see it switching between the riders, but certainly from a selfish point of view, Binder's got to do some publicity, should I say, and get himself some good PR, and that will come if he starts beating Acosta.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was great to see them like getting up there and quick at their home Grand Prix and getting up there. Now, you mentioned Maverick Viñales. Unfortunately, during practice, he tried to come back from his broken shoulder and his shoulder injury, and I can speak from experience, when your shoulders are knackered, it is not very fun. So he ended up withdrawing for the rest of the weekend and is going to try again at Balaton Park in Hungary next weekend. Someone else who wasn't having a very good weekend either was the Yamahas, Matt. Nowhere in practice. And we'll talk about Yamaha now because we're probably not going to talk about them during the sprint or the race because they just didn't even feature.
What do you call it? A nadir. It is the lowest possible point for a bike that almost won a race this season. It's, you like to use the word shocking, and I would say that is exactly the right word for this result. It seems like a big part of the problem was for Yamaha was the different construction rear tire. They brought sort of a stiffer and more sturdy rear tire. And this is not the first time they've brought this kind of a tire. And every time they brought it, the Yamahas have not had a good time with it, but it was particularly appalling this time around. And I think it was Miller said that essentially once they got to about 120 kilometers an hour, the tire would just spin and send the bike in random directions. They had zero grip at the rear as they were in the traction zones and trying to accelerate. Once they got above 120, it just like, and I don't know if it's mechanical suspension, or I don't know if it's ECU programming, or I don't know if it's a power delivery from the engine itself, but something very clearly needs fixing, because if that was a problem for them, it was so much less of a problem for everybody else that effectively it's only a problem for them.
You would say as well is if you were picking tracks for Yamaha to struggle at, this would probably be top of the list, wouldn't it? Historically, it's been a power track. Ducati's always gone really well here. But I think they struggled a lot more than I was expecting, certainly. I mean, I tuned in and I can't remember, was it the sprint or the main race? Rins was last. Dead last. I know he's been having not a great season, but like literally last on the track going round. So, and Quartararo didn't look like he was making much progress either. I mean, from what I can remember, he was just getting nailed by everybody. So, yeah, I'd put this down as just a track that they're going to do well at, move on to the next race and look forward to the ones with a few more corners.
Yeah, it was interesting. It wasn't Miller, but one of the other Yamaha riders made the comment that really they're not great in the braking zones either. And that essentially Quartararo's performance relative to the other riders is that somehow he's still able to be great in the braking zone, even though the braking on the Yamaha isn't that good. So they clearly are in a rebuild. They have the V4 that they're still developing and might be running. But right now, I'd say their performance is going to be very circuit specific and is going to be very tied to the braking zones and Quartararo's ability to use them against the other marks.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll move on to quali now, but it was interesting. Because I don't think we're going to get a chance to really mention Yamaha again. They're all gone. But you mentioned the V4. They come out today and said Quartararo is going to test it at Misano, not the Grand Prix weekend, we don't think. I think there's a test afterwards. So we don't know whether they're going to do it behind closed doors or whether it's going to be the official test. I think, but it'd be interesting to see that on track. And they've got nothing to lose now. They might as well go sooner rather than later with it. But on to quali, and the surprise of quali, amazing. We mentioned him before, Bezzecchi on the Aprilia, a bike that we said on the previous pod, this track would be telling whether Aprilia go well here, because they've traditionally not really gone well here either, and he's come through Q1 to snatch pole position. Absolutely unbelievable. Him and Bastianini both come through Q1. For all intents and purposes, it looked like Marquez was going to get pole. He was like leading pretty much every session, going in, looking really quick. But just like in Bruno, he bins it. Bagnaia had a bit of a mare as well, run off track a couple of times, and they've left the door wide open. And Bez comes through and snatches it. With also someone we haven't mentioned yet was Alex Marquez. Strong weekend, coming back, but also obviously carrying a long lap penalty from his antics on Johan Mir in a Bruno. So Alex Marquez gets second. Bagnaia still hangs onto the front row despite his qualifying issues. Marc Marquez is still fourth. Bastianini is fifth. Aldeguer, we haven't mentioned him, but we will be talking quite a lot about Aldeguer as we get on later. A really strong sixth. Acosta, seventh. And Fernandez, eighth, looking really quick as well. So that sets up a salivating prospect for the sprint. So onto the sprint review then, and one thing we should really address at the start was the starts. Wow. Bagnaia and particularly Aldeguer and someone else, Matt, I think, had these awful spin-up starts, and it looks like caused by the whole shot devices, maybe.
Yeah, I haven't seen a full accounting yet of exactly what that issue was, but I believe at least one writer commented, look, they give us such a hard time about dropping the visor tear-offs on the grid. Maybe they should make sure they clean up the dirty side of the grid too. And in particular, they mentioned that some of the other series that run there had their grid markings painted out with black paint, and that they think perhaps that might have been at issue. Now, I can tell you, because of my knowledge of another series, that there are multiple types of paint you can, in fact, use on a circuit. And if you are using, for example, you're painting the white line around the edge of the circuit, there's a very specific kind of paint you're required to use. It has more grip than the track. And they can check by lot numbers whether or not you've used the correct paint. And I do wonder if perhaps they didn't choose the correct type of paint for putting on the track.
Unless Bagnaia's carrying that paint pot around with him to different circuits. I'd say it was mainly down to the riders, because we've seen Bagnaia do it a couple of times now, especially last season as well. So, yeah, unless Bagnaia's painting his wheels with that paint, I think he just needs to work on his starts, isn't it? We've seen it a few times this season where he'll either get a rocket start and get to the front, or he'll get a not great start and he'll drop back into the pack. And this year his Achilles heel is dropping into the pack because he just gets stuck and can't go anywhere.
Yeah, I would normally think, the riders are happy to make mistakes, but the rider who made that comment about the paint was not Bagnaia. And we just have to consider that it was Bagnaia and Aldeguer who were line astern on the same side of the grid. It just argues that either there was a mechanical problem or there was a problem at that part of the grid that did not get correctly identified or addressed before the sprint, because we didn't see that happen the next day.
No, we didn't, and we have seen this happen before. For once, this rarely happens. I'm going to disagree with Danny. Actually, I don't think Bagnaia had. I don't think it was his fault at all. I think this is a combination of these whole shot devices, them maybe dropping the clutch, but it was so unexpected and it was so dangerous seeing the bikes behind having to swerve out. Now I'm going to ask a question to my panel, guys. Should we just get rid of these whole shot devices? They're dangerous.
Yes.
I think to a large degree, I'd be fine with that, because you mentioned that, and I remembered someone else said that because it's into an uphill braking zone, what I didn't realize is they tuned these based on the first braking zone they encounter, and they said because it's into an uphill braking, they essentially will run it, they'll run it with the chassis on the ground to start, and some manufacturers, they alleged, might be giving full torque in second gear. Some might even be going full torque in first gear because their calculations say at that ride height, you should have the grip. But if your calculations are wrong, well, then suddenly you're spinning sideways across the grid unexpectedly.
I've said before, I enjoy the technology aspect. I find it really interesting. But from a racing point of view, just strip it. Strip it. I like the manual. We've done racing. Be in control. I understand the technology is great, and it's a bit of a war of who can get it best, and Ducati seem to have got it the best out of everybody. But take that off. Same with the ride height device coming out the corners. Strip that as well. There's just too much going on. Same with the stability control. Just give it back to the riders. Let them slide the bikes, control the throttle, and see who can do the best job, if you will, rather than a bit of a technology race between the teams. Because it's just, and I think Stoner said it, didn't he? We've made all the mistakes that F1 made, that dirty word F1, but we've made it and we're going down the same road, and they stripped it out again. And MotoGP is looking at that currently. For me, as I've said before, go back to the 500 era, get them sliding massively out, get it back in control of the riders, and watch the chaos ensue.
Amen. I mean, let's just stop the pod there, shall we? I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point to end it. That's just, amen. Well said, Danny. Completely agree. Agree with Stoner as well. And he made a good point that said it's making it harder for somebody to dominate, or the rider making a difference, and the addition of this stability control as well. But we saw it, and during the actual sprint, we saw how difficult it is, and this played out on Sunday as well, how difficult it is to actually make the overtake. And this just shows where Marc Marquez is kind of somehow making the difference now and making things happen. So Alex Marquez got a great jump and a great lead and got out into the lead, and Marc basically didn't even attempt to get that near him or force him into a mistake. He just sat there patiently and waited until the tyres dropped. So he waited till about lap 7, closed the gap, And then I think it was on lap 9, he just lunges him into turn 3, and he only got a chance to do it there because Alex made a small mistake coming out of that flip-flop chicane on the rear, and Mark just lunged him. And Alex, well, we know he's his brother, we know he's going to be gentle, but Alex knows that Mark has much better pace as well, so he's only going to hurt himself by immediately trying to dive back. So Mark ends up going and taking a very sort of dominant win, and Mark's coming off the second row as well, and he was helped by like the bad starts, but it just shows that certain riders can make the difference, but it's making it so hard for the riders to do stuff that they have to take some risks in. And Mark, I think, had a golden opportunity there, Danny, when his brother made a small mistake.
Yeah, like you say, it was taking a while. I thought he was going to pounce on him straight away, but he seems to have be this matured Marquez this season where he's happy to sit behind. Again, it's another sign of someone who's at one with his machinery and he's got his confidence up. He don't have to go really early. He's not making lungy moves like he has done in the past. Just sat, and interestingly, again, waits for the tyres to come back. He's been very vocal of saying, the first couple of laps, I can't really be on the same limit as everybody else. I have to wait and kind of let the race come to me. But as we've seen time and time again, as the tyres start going off, and I think it's probably to go with sliding the bike more because the grip has gone, the electronics probably not controlling it as much. He then comes into his own because he's more at ease with the bike moving around. And I think we've seen something similar with Aldeguer in the Sunday race. I think what you can see with Mark when you look at it is he pushes more than everybody else. He's willing to risk more. He's willing to hit the dirt, isn't he? He just pushes the bike. And I think that's what we saw with Aldeguer as well. Another rider who's happy to get aggressive, go right to the edge of the track and pretty much has got a win or bin attitude. So I think once the tyres start dropping, they see their moment to go and pounce on it. Trumpets is shaking his head. Let's see what he's got.
I love that. And I agree. I think that is any rider that makes it through Moto 3 and Moto 2 learns that you just that there is no sitting back and waiting. It's 100% aggression from the moment. If you've got half a look, you either put your bike in there or you lose 3 positions. That's really how they learn coming up to MotoGP. But what's interesting to me about especially the way the sport has developed is Marquez now has completely changed that. And I think of him now, he's like a panther in the night, just like for hours waiting for that prey to come by and just bang. It's inescapable once it starts. What he's learned is the correct distance he needs to hang back to basically save his tires. And he just waits. He waits until he sees the rear starting to go a little bit more. He waits until he sees more instability, and then he knows I've got the pace, more than enough pace, to get this done in a lap. And he closes up and he gets it done. And as soon as he's in free air, he's right back on it. I'm just going to make sure I don't overheat these tires. I'm going to treat him nice. I'm going to take him out, buy him an ice cream. I'm going to get him little presents for Valentine's Day. And we're going to get to the end of the race, and I'm going to crush everyone. He'd never won at this track before, and it was not even, it looked close for a long time. I mean, he waited 2/3 of the race before he made his move, but when he made his move, it was clear, although I think Bezzecchi had it was just like obvious in the sprint race and the main race, just nothing to be done about it at that point. And he's really learned how to do that. And kudos, because that's what was needed.
I don't know about a panther. He's more like a cat playing with a mouse, I think, just dangling it around and taking a mickey, it seems, in some races. But just to contradict myself thinking about it, Marquez is cautious with everybody else. But if you notice this season when he comes up on Bagnaia, he's not there. And then he chucks it at him like we've seen him. Was it the sprint when he went past him? It was like, here we go. Comes on the back. That's the only one I've seen this season. Once he gets any opportunity at Bagnaia, that's when the old Marquez comes and he chucks it up. And that is purely ego bashing. Just to say, I'm not having you in front of me even for a lap to get your confidence or get back behind me where you need to be. That's the only one I think, if Bagnaia could play it to his advantage, where he could get him to kind of drag him into deep water, should I say, and hit the deck. But yeah, other than that, mature, pushes Bagnaia around, and a cat playing with a mouse.
Yeah, I believe that was in the Sunday race, wasn't it? When he was trying to nail Bagnaia, because Bagnaia in the sprint had this mare. After his bad start, he drops down to like 14th. Aldeguer drops right back down, but managed to come back through the field and recover quite well. Whereas things just got from bad to worse for Bagnaia. And guys, this looked like something was wrong with the bike. Now Bagnaia said something was going wrong with the tyre. All the commentary thought it. When I was watching it, it looked like something was seriously wrong with like the MotoGP equivalent of porpoising. Michelin have come out, Matt, and reckoned that the tyre was okay.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, we don't believe them.
I mean, and I'm sorry, I don't mean this to bash Michelin, because generally speaking, they are a quality product and they operate in a range of series and really any tire manufacturer, because I think most people probably fail to appreciate the absolute difficulty of creating a product that can deal with, especially at the MotoGP level, just the amount of energy and stress these tires are put through, because these bikes are going really fast, and it's very complicated. And even the smartest, best engineers will sit there and tell you, well, we don't really fully understand the tires anyway. So having to engineer something and having to engineer it without adequate testing, which is always going to be their defense, and they're correct, is going to be a problem. But there's 100 ways to say there's not a problem with the tire, and the tire could still have been the problem. Although if there wasn't a physical defect with the casing or the tread, then it could have been a setting. It could have been, a brake issue with too much heat or not enough heat. And you get wildly different front and rear temperatures causing some sort of an issue. But what is clear, when I looked at that bike, when the video, because they showed this one video of him, and it was just like, it was squirreling. It was like doing, it was doing like twisty motions with the handlebars. And that's really that's reminded me of when I've been on a bicycle going fast and it's just not been seated properly. Or if you're in a car and you've really locked it up and flat spotted a tire, that's kind of what it looked like. And I just, I'm at a loss as to what it was, but I will defend Bagnaia there and say, I don't think it was a Bagnaia issue.
Yeah, I have to say he did the smart thing coming into the pits, didn't he? Because the onboard, how much them handlebars were wobbling around when he was going down the straight. Fair play. You wouldn't want to be on a bike doing that. And Michelin coming out saying there's not a problem with the tyre, so that would make you start to think, well, what's happening with the rest of the bike? There's not many times I would look and go, well, rider needs to be concerned. But from that failure, I would be onto the team on that, going, look, that is when genuinely dangerous when I'm out on track, because the bike is just doing things I'm not expecting it to be. Or I hit the deck or the tyre go or the rider make a mistake. But when the handlebars are wobbling around that much, you want to understand what the problem is.
Absolutely. And it was weird, because when it was doing, I think it was after turn 4, the long right-hander before the fast sweeping left-handers, and you could just see it porpoising almost. It was just, you've got this death oscillation going on. Really, really bizarre. Now, Michelin saying there's nothing wrong with it. Who can forget a couple of seasons ago with the Duff rear tyre that Jorge Martin got at Qatar, which ultimately almost robbed him of the championship. And again, Michelin that time said there was nothing wrong with the tyre, when clearly there was something wrong. So I feel really sorry for Bagnaia there, because it was dangerous. And I totally agree with Danny. The best thing was to park it before you park yourself in a hospital bed. He was already out of the points and going. So that was Matt. So he couldn't do anything else really. His race was doomed from the start pretty much.
No, and I'm going to put this in there because in doing some rapid fire reading to be semi-prepared for this, I did notice that a lot of riders, not just Bagnaia, had a lot of tire issues. Some of them are admittedly because of the bikes still not being perfect. That would be like KTM and their front tires. But a lot of people, I read several different riders talking about, we had problems with their tires. We had problems with the pressures and traffic. This was an issue. So we're also up against the fact that Michelin has, for various reasons, not fully delivered the kind of service that a championship, especially a championship running this much aero and this much ride height, deserve. The tires really aren't quite fit for purpose, but they're also not so bad. They can't mostly be coped with. So we're just in a really sort of unfortunate liminal space. Michelin's almost done. Pirelli's coming in. Pirelli, we've seen in other series, seems like they will make a very serious effort to provide the exact kind of tires that MotoGP requests. And they have a reasonable amount of experience in the lower categories to help them out here. So it's really frustrating to watch riders have to deal with this, but it's just, it's like a bad beat in poker. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's frustrating. It does happen. I mean, it happens in other series as well. You can get duff tyres. I mean, there's a lot of chemistry that goes on there, so really unfortunate for Bagnaia. So in the end, not that much else, I believe, happened in the race then. So Marc Marquez storms to the victory over his brother in second. How many times have we seen that this season? Crazy. So a great return back to form from Alex Marquez. Acosta comes across third, which is brilliant to get KTM onto the podium. Their thing, Bezzecchi in fourth, and he said he had a few little niggles and issues in the sprint, but showing really good pace. Binder in fifth, so this is great. We're saying the KTM resurgence. Binder in fifth. Aldeguer amazingly recovers to sixth after that awful start, proving that what we were saying earlier, it's so hard to pass, and doing that, proving that it can be done. Bastianini strong seventh. Di Giannantonio eighth after being nowhere all weekend, and Zarco pinching a point, I believe, in ninth, with Jorge Martin coming back through to 10th. So that was really strong, as I was showing the Aprilia has pace as we move into the Grand Prix review. So as always, for the Grand Prix, we like to split it up into a few different subjects, and we'll kind of like mash some subjects together. But first person I want to talk about is Bez the Battler, we're going to call him now. So Marco Bezzecchi, awesome. Nowhere on Friday, 18th through Q1, snatched his pole, P4 in the sprint after a few little niggles. But wow, he was leading most of the Grand Prix here. And I don't know, did either of you at any point think because Marc Marquez tried to pass him originally, I think it was around about mid-race distance, wasn't it? And then kind of gave up.
So good.
And I was like, God, what are we going to do it? And it's like, Matt. And then Mark kind of gave up. And I was like, surely, like, Bezzecchi's actually going to do it. He can win.
Yeah, he had the pace. The last sector was the strongest sector, sector 3, sector. What, do they have 4 sectors there? I can't remember. But anyway, I noticed that the Aprilia was particularly strong through the very high speed end. And they were able to gap enough that it was difficult, even if you were following them closely, it was difficult to catch them into the first turn, which is where we did see some overtakes. But I'm going to spoil it for you. There was some kind of not identified issue with his bike, which is why after Marquez finally passed him on lap 20, that Aldeguer was also able to get him. Something happened, and I've seen some pundits suggest that maybe they got a little bit too precious with their fuel calculations.
Ooh.
And he had to do a little bit of saving at the end of the race, or maybe they hadn't planned for him to actually be able to battle Mark and stay in front. They were like, I hate to tell you this, but he's going to have to slow down some, or he's not going to make the end of the race. So that might have been it. Might have been something else, but it was clear his pace fell off more than that would be accounted for just by the tires going off.
Fantastic ride from Bezzecchi, weren't it? And he took off like a scolded cat. He really did pull the pin and try to make that break, because he opened up the gap to, I think he got it up over a second at one point, didn't he? I can't remember what it was every lap, but I thought he looks like he's got a bit of pace here. He might come away. I thought Mark was struggling a little bit. It looked like, obviously, lo and behold, he's just sitting there chilling as usual, but it looked like he'd got genuine pace on everybody. And I thought in a couple of laps, he could be, 2-3 seconds and just ride out of here. Then when we got the final battle between them, I mean, what a battle. Mark got past, then Bezzecchi comes back past again. You're just willing him anyway. When they come out of the corner and he's that close, you go, come on, Bez, don't back out here, son. Stick it up the inside and make a race of this. So it was really good. And then it looked a bit similar to Alex, weren't it, where he made a slight mistake through the corner and then Mark got the run on him down into there and he blocked him off and got there. But while we had it, fantastic battle. Really good to see Bez up at the front again. He's really starting to get some form and consistency now. And, I know Martin's back, but for the longer term, if Bez can keep this up, who's to say that he won't be the lead rider in the team? We're all expecting Martin to come back once he gets 100% fit and back on form, but Bez at the minute, he's smashing it. You'd have to say he's by far the best of the rest.
Yeah, I think there was maybe in the sprint a point at which Jorge had a lap that was as fast as whoever was in the lead. So it's there. But the thing about Bezzecchi is not expecting to lead the team and having to lead it. What's clear is that he has now the faith and the confidence in the bike that even having Mark behind him, he's like, okay, fine. Let's do this. Let's throw down and do this. I'm not just going to say, oh, Mark's passed me and watch him race off into the distance. No. If he's going to pass me, he's going to have to pass me all the way, and I'm not going to stop till I'm out of tires or out of bike. And yeah, it's getting so close, guys. It's getting so close with the Aprilia. We could have just an absolutely scintillating finish to the season, even though I know the championship isn't going to be in doubt. But oh man, keep the racing close like this, and delight.
What I like about Bez this season is he seems to have got everything under control. He's not looking as wild as what he was before, especially when he was on the Ducati. Sometimes he looked like he could have a bit of a, not brain fade, but you know what I mean, get a bit excited, whereas he seems to have really got on top of the bike mid-season. Start of the season he looked to be struggling a little bit, but from mid-season onwards he just looks like a man who's gelled with his machinery and obviously pumping in the performances and the results.
One of the things he said in one of his interviews was that he is actually, a big part of this journey has been him adapting to optimize how the Aprilia needs to be raced. And you just sometimes, you just said that thing about the Ducati and him being a bit wild. And I'm just suddenly thinking, well, maybe it's the nature of how the Aprilia needs to be ridden has exactly allowed him to learn that. You know what I mean? Like you can't just boot it out of the turn like a Ducati. You're going to have to carry more corner speed, and that means you're going to have to do everything differently. And suddenly, you're a much more complete rider.
Well, the Duke we know historically, hasn't it? It's been more a point and squirt motorbike. You get it into the corner, you kind of manage the corner, and you get it up, stand it up straight as quick as you can, and you use that power delivery down the straight to catch you to the next bit. The Aprilia, we know, with the wings and the philosophy that they've got is more about carrying the corner speed. Kind of like the old Yamaha, weren't it, with the Rossi days, where it was all about they'd get to the corners and the Yami'd catch up. He's just clearly got on top of it. And as you say, Trumpets, probably suits his style. He's better at carrying corner speed rather than managing traction, should I say, out the corner to get the ultimate top speed down the straight.
It's the old school Aprilia DNA, because what Aprilia super famous for is the old back in the 250 days with Biaggi, their 250s, which was all about corner speed, and it's in the DNA of what makes Aprilia great is corner speed. They lost it a bit in the original MotoGP era when they had the snarling, my favourite bike ever, the RS3 Cube, the fire-breathing widowmaker of a bike, like absolutely amazing. But they're back to like the old sort of DNA of Aprilia now, which is absolutely amazing. And Bezzecchi, since Silverstone snatching that win, is arguably one of the highest scoring riders. I can't quite remember because I was throwing myself down a mountain in Ireland, but the Saxon Ring race, he binned it out of P2, I think, in the wet. If he hadn't have done that, he'd be really close to Bagnaia. It's only like, I think it's only like 43 or something points off of Bagnaia now, Danny?
43. I was just about to say, between the three of us, do we think he's going to catch him? I'm going yes.
Yeah. I have to say, Trumpets, will he catch Bagnaia?
At this rate, if this trend is linear, yeah, no doubt.
It's been super amazing to see, and it just goes from strength to strength. And I mentioned it earlier, like we said it on the last sort of show, this would be super telling, this track for Aprilia, like, because we kind of semi-expected them to be nowhere here, and to snatch pole position, to be fighting, well, to right to the closing stages of the race, and one of the only riders in recent times to actually stick it to Marc Marquez and to really take it and lean on him in a hard battle, because that was absolutely scintillating stuff. I was leaping off the sofa watching it. absolutely brilliant. And yeah, as soon as Jorge Martin gets on it, I mean, that's essentially Jorge Martin's second race, isn't it? And he had a bit of a nightmare. We'll talk about him a bit later, but amazing from Bezzecchi. And we should really mention it a little bit because we don't actually have him as a main topic, but Marquez's sixth double in a row. Like, it's so he's won the last 12 races, Danny. Just I mean, I'm running out of words to try to describe his season.
Well, this is the first time I think since that comment come up, so I'm going to use my fanism to go mad about him because he's just taking the mickey. Honestly, it's like playing the PlayStation on easy when you can just ride past everybody. He's great rider. He's having an amazing season, and I think like the guy put in the comments, apologies, I forget the name on YouTube now, but he summed it up really. Rather than moan about his dominance, etc., we should enjoy it because you don't see this very often. A rider being as gelled with his machinery and putting in these performances. And other than Silverstone, he should have won every race because he's only really beat himself. There's only Silverstone where you'd go, probably would have got beat overall with Bezzecchi anyway. But yeah, just an amazing season. And every time you tune in at the minute, as I said before, even my partner has started going, oh, you're not bored because he's winning everything? I'm like, no. As a racer, you've got to appreciate the level of professionalism and the level of results and performances he's putting in. And he's not really winning them by the skin of his teeth. He's managing, he's having to battle, he's thinking about the races, whereas historically he's been a bit more wild and as we say, famously win or bin it. But this year he just seems to have been on top of it. And we've discussed before, he is a level above the other riders. He's a genuine great. But this year he looks like he's gone 2 or 3 levels above everybody. Everybody else just looks, nowhere near him. I don't know, people get frustrated with the constant praise on him, but he really is just putting others to shame.
The perfect storm. The rider, the bike, the competition, it's just perfect. And as a result, we're going to get to see something incredibly rare, like a full solar eclipse. They only come around so often. And especially, and I think what makes this different, I think what makes this less boring is coming back from a career-ending injury. Like he could have very easily just been done. And almost any human being, if you're a listener, don't know if you've ever done sports or anything else at a high level, but it is hard to overstate the amount of stamina mentally and physically it takes to be even remotely competitive. Even at just I'm in the top 1% in the country level, never mind at this level. And then for so long to persist and then to get the operation and then to come back and not just say, give me the best thing straight away, but to be like, no, I need to make sure I'm in the right place, and to do all that and then still have so much desire and drive to this is spectacular stuff.
I have to say, to anybody who isn't a Marc Marquez fan, and I'll hold my hands up, I was always Rossi. I wasn't a massive Marquez fan. I didn't really like him.
I remember you not being quite anti-Marquez back in the day. I remember that. Yeah.
Anti-Marquez. And I have to say, the documentary, I think I've said it on the podcast before, is what changed me. And I would say to anyone who's not a fan, go and watch that documentary of Marquez, because that details the accident, the battles he has to come through, his relationship with his brother. I watch that and I come away going, do you know what, I've got a different view on this now. I actually see what he's gone through and I want him to do well. And that's when I started kind of going, oh yeah, hopefully he does all right then. And I've said before, if he started dominating every race, I'd probably go back off him. But just for what he's gone through there, see where he's gone, and the battles and the struggle mentally he's had to go through is unbelievable. And his arm, I think we said before, his arm's like Frankenstein's arm. It's just cut to pieces. And I won't spoil it, but anybody who isn't a fan, I'd certainly suggest go and watch the documentary and then see if you still feel the same afterwards.
That's a brilliant thing. Well said, guys. Absolutely well said. That's brilliant. As Trumpet said, and a complete solar eclipse of performance, and this happens so rarely. Well said, Danny, as well. This is coming back like this. This is like Nicky Lauda stuff. This is like Mick Doohan stuff of coming back.
I have to say as well, when we're on about the performances he's doing, you can see why they didn't give him a GP24 last season now, can't you? And they left him on that 23. Yeah. Could you imagine what he would have done on that bike if he'd have had the same as them? So, yeah, turns out Ducati made the right decision when we were all questioning it last season of should it be him or Martin.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Because a lot of people were like, oh, what have Ducati done? They've made a terrible mistake. And, well, I think they're pretty happy with their decision now. We should move on now. So another thing Ducati should be pretty happy with is their decision to put another Spanish rider on the bike, a bit of a younger one. Awesome Aldeguer. Let's talk about the weekend he had. So he's been a bit quiet in recent times. He was amazing in Le Mans. We've seen some great performances from him. Then he's gone off the boil a little bit. And in this modern day MotoGP, they essentially get one practice session to get dialed in, and then they're straight into competitive sessions. It's really hard for him to find his feet. And what I find most impressive about this kid is his late race pace, Trumpets. Like, it's just stunning. He comes on so strong towards the end of the race, and this is something like we see like experienced riders do.
Yeah, well, you say that, and you say late race pace, and you think Bastianini, right? Not exactly a rookie. So to have this level of, just call it tire sensitivity, tire management, if you want, as a rookie is extraordinary. I honestly can't think of any rookie off the top of my head in an era where there's such restricted testing who could come in and deal with tires like this. Now, I will say, I'm going to take a little bloom off your rose here, and I will say that I feel like strategically in the race, he was stuck behind slower riders. And I think he was clearly smart enough to be patient in that. And so that's always going to help your tire management. But what's impressive subsequently, and what made everybody sit up, and what we're about to have a really great debate about, and I can't wait for it, is that once he got around, he was it Acosta and I forget, like there was a pass and it opened the door and he passed two people, and suddenly he had like a big chunk of free air ahead of him. And he made up how many seconds on Marquez in half the race?
Yeah.
I mean, like a stunning amount. Crazy. And not on the best bike either, right?
Oh, that's a controversial topic. We'll be thinking this is a whole segment and probably a whole show on its own about whether the GP24 is as good as the GP25, Danny. But you made a great point there, Matt, quickly before we go to Danny, about the rookies not being able to look after the tyres. And what was the thing that hampered Acosta so much last year in his rookie season was he was destroying the tyres quite a lot. And we've seen it from the outset, Danny, just like Aldeguer he's got this innate sort of natural ability just to naturally look after the tyres. Yeah,
he's like a Bastianini that can qualify. And he's all right in there. And what I like about Aldeguer is he's good on the tyres. He's super aggressive in some of his moves while he's going. But we are genuinely, I think, starting to see the next generation of the riders coming up for the battling when some of the older ones start to retire, Marquez, Bagnaia. And the fact that him and Acosta, I'm pretty sure it's them two, innit, what don't really get on. Oh, give me some of that needle. See, give me some of that. Let's see them going at it. And the fact they're both coming in, both still classed as rookies, really. I know Acosta's in his second season, but he's still early in the career. And they're like chalk and cheese, really, aren't they? Because Aldeguer can manage the tyres, and Acosta, we know, if he gets a sniff of any result, just burns it out. We were all raving, thinking he was going to win his first race, didn't we, at Qatar, when he burnt through I think it was his first race, when he burnt through the tyres and got up there. So I think the future's bright. I think the kid's got, from my point of view, I think he's got everything. Aggressive, loves a late-minute move, loves a block pass. I can't rave enough about him. I think he's a real dynamite and one for the future. Looking forward to seeing what he brings.
Yeah, he ain't shy at all, is he? And that move that he put on Acosta in that flip-flop chicane, Matt, that was rude. And I think the only move we saw in the MotoGP category in the chicane, there was the horrible turn 2 A and B, and the way he got Acosta, he just rolled in through the right-hander and just shoved it up the inside. You don't see many people do that.
No, you don't. And this is, again, this is one of these things that people will call innate. Whenever, however he learned it, when he sees the opportunity, there's no working through all the different possible chess combinations. He just goes. But what's different about him is that he has, again, this natural feel for being so kind to the bike when that move isn't there. And that is what's missing so often in rookies, is that every lap they're trying to hit 100% of the bike's capacity. But in reality, you only ever want to use that when you absolutely have to. And he just seems to have that ability to feel the bike that way. And it is a feeling. I mean, I tell a story about another series that I won't mention, but they were using, in order to demarcate track limits, they were using cuts in the asphalt. So, you've seen this. There was a famous Volkswagen commercial. You can even play tunes. The tires make noise, right? You can feel that. And so they started with very small ones. And there was only one rider out of 20 that actually noticed the smallest cut. So there are some riders are just more sensitive that way. Their rear end equipment can just feel that slightly bit better. It's just wired directly to their lizard brain, I suppose.
That's the most gentle description of a derriere I have ever heard. Rear end equipment. I like it, Matt. So he was absolutely brilliant. He's not shy. He shoved it on people. He actually got there to the point that Mark, when he got into the front, Marquez said that he was actually a bit worried when he saw his out of gear coming, because Mark had actually seen his data, because all of the Ducati bikes share the data, and he saw his long run data from practice and knew he was quick. And Aldeguer is a bit of a protege of the Marquezes. They have been teaching him stuff and they have been looking after him a bit. So Mark had to get back on it basically for the end. And at one moment I was like, oh my God, is Aldeguer going to have the spherical objects if he gets near Mark to try to shove a move on? And I think I'd say yes. If he had a chance of his own Grand Prix, I think he'd let the brakes off like he did with Bezzecchi. The move on Bezzecchi was brilliant. You saw it from looking behind and it was just like, is he going to go for it? Yeah, he just lets the brake off and just goes for it. Block pass. I mean, it's all fair. It's rude, but it's all fair in love and war. So he had an amazing race, and he shows that he dropped that back to, like, I think it was about P10 or P9 on the first lap. He didn't have and he's had to come through the field. He passed Bagnaia, and this is a great segue into how his teammate did, Alex Marquez. So Alex obviously was carrying this long lap penalty from his Harpoon on Johan Mir in the Czech Republic. And this long lap penalty is a bit of controversy around this, because it was a long one, and usually you lose about 2.5 seconds. And because you carry it over from the previous race, you have to take it within the first, I think, 3 or 4 laps of the main race when all the group is quite bunched up still. Matt, do you think this is fair? Because Alex has come out and made a point saying, I don't think this is very fair, because this was a really long lap penalty, like a really long one.
Okay, I'm going to really annoy you and say that what I would need to decide if it was fair or not is exactly that data for every track, the delta between the long lap and the regular lap. And then you look at it in percentage of total lap time. Because let's face it, 4 seconds at Austria is not 4 seconds at Silverstone either.
Great point.
And so you look at that and suddenly you're like, okay, well, we've essentially assessed him, 10% of a lap. Whereas if this had occurred at Silverstone, it would be 3.2. So did he deserve 3 times the time penalty? Because it's going to be the same long lap regardless of the track. And I say he has a point. There needs to be some range of equity there to ensure that the penalty is the same penalty across all the tracks. I think that is a reasonable point.
Yeah, it's a penalty, innit? Just don't make the mistake. Stop mooning. Get
I
on with
knew
it.
you were going to do there.
It's just, again, it's another topic. It's a talking point, don't get me wrong, but I get it. If I was him, trust me, I would be moaning like a right little baby saying, oh, this is rubbish, change the rules and all that. But the bottom end of it is, isn't it? Don't make a mistake, don't get the penalty, and you don't have to worry about it.
That is a valid point. Don't punt somebody off. But it was a strong return for him from this. And actually, he's extended over the race. He's extended his lead on Bagnaia. He was 48 points in front of Bagnaia coming into this. And now he's up to 55 points, I think, in front of Pecco. So he played it sensible. Like Alex dropped back quite down the order. I think he was at 16th when he come back on. He was quite far down the order. But he really struggled to actually make the passes and come back through, which just shows how impressive Aldeguer's ride was, because Aldeguer got the passes done and got back through. So P10 for Alex, a bit hard done by. I'm kind of in Matt's camp here. I think the penalty was a bit disproportionate for the track. But again, all tracks aren't equal, and you've got to fit them in somewhere. It's a really hard thing to try to orchestrate. I like the long lap penalty. I like the fact they're doing it and not adding a time penalty on, because you can't do it like there's no
or
pit
a
stop
grid
really.
drop, which is just then a random chance lottery thing. No, I like the long lap penalty. I just want to say, don't get me wrong. I just feel like if you're going to use it to penalize previous, not in race, but previous race incidents, then you want to think a little bit about how to sort of roughly equalize it on a percent of lap time basis. Maybe they needed a special route for previous penalties to make it more the same as other tracks, is all I'm saying. Worth looking at.
Just a quick one before we move on this. To be fair to the sport, how do you regulate it? What about if I take that long lap penalty half a second quicker than everybody else? Do you then go, well, you need to shorten that up so no one can be quicker? It's
Oh, come on. You have reference data from past riders taking it. You average that out, and then you see what that is an average of the lap time. Kyle is like, oh my God, just cut all of this out. This is like boring math. This is not what I want. Yeah, you average it out and you look at it as a total, as a percentage of your lap time. And then you set boundaries that we want penalties like this to be between 3 and 6% of a total lap. And then you go from there.
Love it. Love it. If you'd like to penalise us, how about you give us some feedback? Or if you don't want to penalise us and you quite like what you're listening to, how about go and give the show a subscribe on YouTube, or maybe send us in a lovely email telling how pretty Danny is, how great Matt looks. Tell him how bad my bald spot is getting on my head when I look down. And you can do that by sending us an email to mrapexmoto@gmail.com. That's mrapexmoto@gmail.com. And go and check us out on YouTube so you can go and see us, and give the show a little like and a subscribe. We do try to reply to all of the emails. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts and your thoughts on the show. Or if you have some technical insight or juicy gossip, then we'd be very much welcome of that. Something else which was very much welcome this weekend was KTM returns. Again, KTM's come back for the second weekend in a row. We've mentioned it a bit at the top of the show, but this is great. Acosta P3 in the sprint, P4 in the Grand Prix after cooking his front tyre. There's one big talking point I want to talk about Acosta. He absolutely mugged Pecco Bagnaia into the penultimate corner and looked like he spooked him off the track, and we can have a bit of a game of whose fault was it. Do we think that move was fair? Because I just want to say before we answer that, there was no race direction, didn't get involved in any of the moves this round at all. There was a big lack of race direction intervention, and I think that's ultimately a good thing, but I thought that Acosta move was a bit on the edge.
Over the edge. But not so over the edge that you get a penalty for it. I mean, you couldn't be more perfect with that move. And this is the problem with race direction. You can look at the literal words on the page and interpret them and probably say that Acosta deserved a long lap penalty or a stern talking to or whatever. But you know what you didn't hear? You didn't hear Bagnaia going, he ran me off the track. He didn't see him running down the pit lane with his fist in the air. You didn't see that. So what I surmise, because again, for all I pretend to know what I'm talking about, I'm still fairly new to the sport, but what I surmise is that is absolutely between the riders themselves. It wasn't a transgression. And if I'm race direction, if in something that was that, like you say, Kyle, on the edge, slightly over the edge, I might just take my cues from the riders themselves, because after all, they're the ones putting their lives at risk in this sport. And if Bagnaia felt that was dangerous, we'd have seen it and we'd have heard about it. And then maybe we take a different attitude towards it. But it seems like clear the riders themselves are okay with that level of, what do you call it, argy-bargy over there. And so yeah, let them race, because, wow, that was fun to watch.
And Bagnaia's response is why it was perfectly okay. Maybe up close to the line, but yeah, brilliant. That's what we want to see, though, isn't it? Let them race. Let the boys race on track, settle it between themselves. As long as it's nothing too over the top. But yeah, a bit of fender bending, should we say. It'll be, it's good to watch. So I thought it's a great move. Again, just shows the aggressiveness that Acosta has got when it comes to wheel. And again, he's trying to put his mark out there, isn't he? Who's top of the pile, along with Mark and a few of the others? Bagnaia. You know, previous champion. He wants to set out to show that he can rough it up with the big guys. And I respect the kid, I do. I mean, I might have not made the move myself. I like to think I'm a bit more polite out on the racetrack. But, yeah, he's trying to get an ego out there. He's trying to get his name out and show that he's not going to back out, and he can bully people is probably the word I'm looking for out on track, because he wants to replicate what he's seen Mark and a few of the others do successfully.
Well, I just think, first of all, I said it earlier, I think that's just how they learn in the junior formula. If you're going to be successful, that is the only way to be successful. But secondly, I want to talk about KTM a little bit, because he had a great finish, a podium and a fourth. Bender had a great finish. And Bastianini, who had been nowhere on this bike, has had 2 great races in a row. So this coming together, because consider with Aprilia, yeah, you got Martin out and you got Agura, a rookie, but look at how Fernandez did. He'd have had a 5th and a, 6th, 5th and a 7th? So we've got both Aprilia and KTM, like suddenly sneaking up to those podium spots with the other, with all the different Ducatis that are on the grid. And for them, and I know this is the case you mentioned, RA, for them, it's simply a matter of solving, making the bike turn, because right now, even at their best, they're still eating their front tires. And that is the thing that's holding them back.
Can I just say as well, Acosta's move was great, but what about that Binder move as well around the outside into the chicane? Apologies, because I cannot for the life remember who it was on, but I just remember Hodgie going mad on the commentary, and even me going, how has he made that corner still when he's gone down the outside? I can't remember the last time we've seen that. The only thing what really comes to mind is Bagnaia's crazy move. Was it last season or the season before when he went down the outside? Was it at Thailand? And we were like, oh my God, where's he come in with that move? It was just... yeah, incredible, and great to see them all getting back on there. As you said, it was all of them. You've got Acosta doing it. You've got Binder looking really comfortable out on the bike and getting a lot of airtime. And Bastianini as well coming through, putting some good moves in. I think he dropped back a little bit at one point, didn't he? But he came back and recovered. And yeah, good to see him get on the get some form in the races. And we need KTM to start getting some performances as well, because as much as we talk about the boys up at the front, we want to see that Ducati top 6 kind of broken up, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, with the Binder move, it could have been on Bagnaia or it could have been back onto Fernandez, because Fernandez almost harpooned him at one point into like the final corner and caused Binder a bit of damage. Bastianini, the thing I find really impressive about Bastianini, he made a whopping mistake in turn 1 during the race, went really wide, lost a load of time, and he's come back for P5. He has been so absent this year and so down in the dumps, and suddenly it's clicked. He says he still quite hasn't got his late race magic, but we're still seeing it. It's there. So once he gets that fully unlocked, he's going to be coming back really, really quickly. And the one who's struggled most on the bike, apart from Bastianini, has been Binder. So one thing I think we're really denied of here was Maverick. And I reckon Maverick Vinales has maybe showed KTM the direction, because he has been the top KTM for a lot of the season and doing different things with the bike and the bike configurations. I think Maverick has maybe dragged the team in the right direction, which I never thought we'd sort of see. I thought Maverick was maybe down and out on a weird thing and he was going to peter out, but he's been one of the revelations of the season, and such a shame we didn't get to see him fully fitness here, because he could have been fighting for the win maybe, but absolutely brilliant. So it's, as Matt mentioned earlier, like we've got Aprilia coming in, getting strong. We've got KTM coming in, getting strong. Honda are getting a little bit better as well. Yamaha, well, yeah, we're going to see what's going to happen with them. They keep blowing hot and cold, but we'll see what keeps happening. But I think we're in for a salivating finish to the championship. So long may it continue. And the next round, which is going to be really interesting, to go back to our second topic as well, Aldeguer, we've got the rookies. No one's been there. We've had the Ducati boys go to this Balaton Park in Hungary, a really tight, twisty track. None of the teams are going to have any data with their MotoGP bikes. It's going to be the field leveler. It's going to be fascinating to see who goes well there. And we could well see a Yamaha in the mix. Like, who knows? Absolutely who knows? But yeah, brilliant. We'll move on now quickly now because we have been rambling on for far too long. But we'll get onto our honourable mention section. And we should talk about Jorge Martin. He had 2 very fast crashes, Matt, and that was looking scary when I saw him down in the gravel. I was like, oh no, surely not.
Yeah, well, the first one, like, what was that, like his outlap in the first practice or the second practice? And you just like...
Yeah, the timed one, yeah.
Yeah, on the hard tire, and you're just like, oh. But the one that was really scary was the one that was midway through the race, I think. And he just absolutely tucked the front. Was it downhill? It was through turn 9, I think.
Yeah, the downhill left-hander, the fast
and
left-hander.
You saw the bike go, and you saw him go, and you're just like, oh no. And then afterwards he was quoted as saying, well, now I know my injury's 100% healed. So that just goes to show you, they just think about stuff differently down there in the paddock. No, I'm sure he wasn't. And he said that the first fall robbed him of confidence. But he did. There was it might have been the sprint. It might have been in the race. At one point, he was running on the same pace as the leaders on that bike. What he's missing is he's still just got some ring rust and just fully finding the rhythm of that bike, because he has so few kilometers on that thing compared to everyone else, even just in his own team. And never mind, like you say, like, you train to race, but at a certain point you also race to train. There's race fitness that you can only get from racing consistently. And I'm sure he's still getting into the races going, man, my forearms are killing me at this point. My neck is just done. So I look forward to him making progress back up the grid. Oh, man, but he's got to be happy with the signs that he's seeing on the bike right now.
Yeah, he is. And oddly, he actually said it was ultimately a good weekend, even though he was nowhere on the timesheets and 2 sort of fast crashes. But he's learning. As you said, the pace is coming there, and essentially only his second race. He needs time on the bike. And you made a great point about race fitness. I've done it myself when I was out in an injury in my own race, and albeit only go-karts sometimes, and I lost a load of fitness, and I come back and I struggled like hell to hang on for an hour and a half in a kart. Or somebody else in the Aprilia, and we've mentioned him already, was the Raul Fernandez. Deserves a mention because stunning weekend again. What could have been? He could have been, I think, was it in the sprint? He could have been 5th and end up having to retire because, again, ride height device again broke. And these, like Danny, I love the technology, but I'm fully now just get rid of them. Just get rid of them. Let's go back to a bit of the old school. Let's go rid of them. And somebody who went back to the old school a little bit, Johan Mir, we need to rejoice. This is like the Dacia Sandero bit on the old Top Gear. Johan Mir actually finished a race. Can't believe it. He didn't get harpooned. He didn't get taken out. He actually finished a race. He managed to come home in the main race in an incredible P6, which is mental to think about this. This is his best result since India 2023, Danny. What a weird, crazy stat. Yeah,
and he had a great battle with Binder. You know, they were showing quite a bit on the telly. It was really good result from him. He didn't, as you say, he didn't look into it. He genuinely beat Binder on the KTM to get that result.
What can you say? When you're hung out to dry for that long and you can still bring it home when the opportunity presents itself, yeah, it's definitely a cause for celebration. And yeah, I love the engineering, but if we're going to have reliability issues, let's have our engines bursting into flames like Di Antonio's did, and not...
God, yeah.
That's like I want things on fire and exploding, and not just like, oh, we've had a water leak, so we've had to retire the bike.
Yeah, that was a shame for Digi, and yeah, the whole VR46 team really were a bit absent most of the weekend. I mean, Morbidelli was coming back from injury. We can't really criticise him too much, but yeah, great to see Mir and be in the top Honda for once and not having bad luck. So Honda on the ascendant, that is brilliant. So the championship standings then after this round, Marc Marquez has pulled out his lead to a whopping 142 points, which is mental. Bagnaia is 197 points back, with a rapidly closing Marco Bezzecchi now 240 points back from Marc. And there's a fascinating battle coming up for fifth, where we've got Franco Morbidelli, Fabio Di Giannantonio and Acosta all tied, I believe, on fifth place for points, which is absolutely amazing. So there's a great little subplots happening now for those battles in the standings. So as ever, we like to finish the show with handing out some awards. I have intentionally not put my awards in there because I know Trumpets will steal it anyway. So I'm going to go to Trumpets first. Who was your rider of the weekend?
This is gosh. It's a what do you call it in the military? Target rich environment here. But how do you not say Bezzecchi here? The man has shown not just this weekend, but over the course of the last several weekends, that it's not just the bike, but it's also the rider. He's taken a clear step and has shown, even in this race, he absolutely has all of the equipment to take on Marquez and not back down. And so, yeah, chapeau, Bezzecchi, my pick.
Can't argue with that, Danny. Was that yours?
That was mine, even in the notes I wrote it. So
I don't ever read those, so
yeah. I don't usually ever put one. You've had nicked the one time I wrote it. So I'm going to go for the boring one. I'll take Marquez because I'll leave Kyle to have the exciting one. But yeah, Marc Marquez then. Just domination again, banging in perfect results. So can't complain.
Okay, nice one. Well, I'm going to give mine to Miguel Oliveira. No, I'm not. I'm going to give it to Aldeguer because he was absolutely amazing, and I want to see much more of him at the front. So this time, Danny, I'm going to let you go for moment of the weekend first before Matt can steal it.
Well, he won't steal this one, I don't think. My moment of the weekend was when Mark had won the race and everybody realised that he could just sit out 4 races pretty much, and that's assuming that someone takes maximum points in every race. It's just phenomenal. I know not to big Mark again, but you just go... I didn't realise his lead was that big. I knew it was big, but I didn't realise he could genuinely sit out for 4 races, and arguably with the form of the other riders, probably 5 or 6 races and still be leading the championship. Just, yeah, crazy how big that gap. And that seems like that gap's got big very quickly, because at one point it was quite close between him and Alex. But yeah, that was my moment of the weekend, my realisation of just how big that gap is.
Yeah, it was when the commentary done it. They just realised of everyone, and like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Matt, what was your moment of the weekend?
I had a moment of panic when Danny said that. I was like, no, he's not going to. But no, he didn't. Good job. How could you overlook for your moment of the weekend in qualifying to Acosta running out of fuel and freewheeling his motorcycle all the way down the hill, giving us an unplanned and, based on pedestrian reaction, somewhat unexpected tour of the paddock all the way back to his garage. And hats off to the MotoGP people for just keeping that camera on all the way down there. It was and then he got back out. I mean, he didn't qualify as well as he wanted to, but just like that moment of like, oh, he's just going to coast all the way back to his garage. This is fantastic.
Yeah, that was brilliant. I completely forgot about that. That was absolutely brilliant. I don't think he got a fine or anything, which is great. I love the back where he went through the pedestrian entrance, and they were like, he get to check his pass on his bike. They went straight through all the pedestrian entrance and the turnstile. That was really, really cool. So my moment of the weekend, there's a couple actually. I have to go give it to, like, the main one I have to give it to was the Rider Parade and the Legends Parade, which was really cool to see Stoner back and all of the cool bikes. There was Agostini and I think a few people going round. But my moment of the weekend is the director and the cameraman hell-bent on trying to stir the pot between Rossi and Marquez. It's twice they got the little clips of them both in, and the one where they're walking, passing each other in the thing, and Marquez is like, oh no, I didn't see him, I was all focused and looking down. And it's funny. I think people online are calling it Rosquez now, like the Rosquez conspiracy, and they're trying to stir it up as much as possible, and kept seeing it, and it's really, really awkward. I guess it's like seeing an ex-girlfriend after an acrimonious split up, and it's just funny that it must be super annoying for both of them. They're like, clearly don't get on, and it's like you've got the world's press trying to stir it up. So if you want to stir it up with any of my panel, how would you like to get hold of them? Matt, where can people find you?
At MattPT55 on all of your socials. Anytime you like, come tell me how I'm wrong about everything. And come check out some of my music performances too.
Ooh, excellent. If you'd like to stir Danny up a bit, how can people stir you up, Danny?
You can find me on X occasionally at Danny Henney F1.
Brilliant. And I don't do social media anymore, but how about go on to YouTube and give Mr. Apex Moto a follow and a like? That'd be fantastic. So we'll be back again just next week. It's round 14 at the new Balaton Park, and this is going to be absolutely fascinating. So why don't you join us then? As always, thanks for listening to Mr. Apex MotoGP.